What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Full Blast. I'm very excited about this one. This is one of those, Raja fucked up. Let's throw Raja under the bus kinds of videos, which are always fun and delightful, and I enjoy them very much. So, I have been in the typology community for a while now. Casually in the community for about 8 years. 9 years ago, I sort of discovered it. 8 years ago, I got into the community of it. But then really, from like 2013, 2014, I was like in it right now, like doing the thing. And way back in the day, I erroneously typed my dad as an ESTP. Pure Myers-Briggs bullshit typing. Because he was like, oh, he's like a jock athlete guy who's got sort of thicker features. He's got those big old wrists and the big neck. He played football quarterback. He was like a 4-letter varsity athlete in high school, played golf for most of his life. Obviously he's older now and, his health sort of declined, whatever. But again, for at first I was like, he's got to be an ESTP. Then I started to learn about the things and learn about the functions and learn about this and that. And I was like, I don't think he's an ESTP. This man has a lot of F in him. And then I, went on, learning about objective personality. We're doing the OP thing now. And when I sort of discovered OP, so I knew that my mom was an ESFJ for years. That typing has not changed. She is like lead, blast, consume, last, ESFJ. Great. You checked all the boxes. You're good. Right? And she's even like blast, play, sleep. So doubling up on her lead, feminine FE, blast, play, missing, consume, like very easy to type, right? She's like the Oprah where even the internet would get her right. She's one of those types, right? As opposed to like your Ryan Reynolds, technically an ESFJ function-wise, but he's a jumper. He's like a play, consume, sleep, blast, last ESFJ. She's not that. My dad, I was like, what's going on with him? What's going on with him? And then also just like my own bias son bullshit that, I find it a lot harder to type people that you're close to, for me personally. Just because, there's family's weird, man. Family's weird. It is hard to see. It can be hard to see your family objectively because pointing out strengths and weaknesses in them, especially when they're your parents, then that's sort of like indirectly shining a light on some of the things that maybe you don't want to deal with right now. And so there can be a lot of mishigas, right? But when Clara did her video, I'm saying that it's Clara's video. Technically, it was on the objective personality page about SI. But like, let's be real, that was Clara's video. Credit where it's due. Clara's video on the OP page, the OP YouTube page, and then also the video in the class about SI versus NI. Or I think it was SI versus SE. Maybe it was one of those. Whatever. It was talking about the two different axes with respect to the sensory function. That was like sort of the thrust of it. And between those two, I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah, no, my father is not an ENFP at all. There is zero ENFP-ness in him. Not zero. Everybody can do everything. And of course, so again, spoiler alert in the fucking title of the video, he is on the FITE axis. But that man does not have SI anywhere in his function stack. Now, I have typed him, and I feel pretty good about this. Lead, consume, blast, last, ESFP. Whether or not he is save your play or save your sleep, that I don't know. He is quite a bit older, so he is in his 70s. He was 40 when I came into the world, and so that's, you know, I will have caught him always at a point in his life. Like, I never saw his wilder days, right? When he was just all, and again, he was somebody who was like all in on his lead SE. And his FI and his TE sort of like did whatever they wanted. And his play and his sleep, again, that I can't say for sure. I have an inclination that he is play above sleep, especially because as the cross-check of he is in fact ST over NF for sure, now that I like understand the functions and like what I'm actually seeing. So for that reason, I feel more confident in calling him consume, play, sleep, and blast last. But regardless, lead, consume, blast last. And so I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, I mistyped him this whole goddamn time. All right, so let me sort of talk through what the differences are. Because I don't want this to just be, it's going to get vloggy. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But I want it to be like somewhat educational and informative as well, right? So let's talk about what are the differences between an ENFP and an ESFP. Again, leaving aside the animals and whatever, I'm just talking about like doubling up on the XF consume, some sort of T blast last, right? Your stock versions of your ESFP and your ENFP. So I think that there's a couple of things at play that I just missed due to a lack of understanding of the terms, right? And that I was like, oh, that's just right. That is a nuance that I did not have. Touche. Now that I understand what SI is doing and what it is trying to do, and more specifically, what SI is really trying to perfect, right? That's where you're gonna get that, like ENFP, right? Especially if you're like a lead consume, ENFP, you have your ST blast lash, like, fuck, I do not want to do this. You're gonna go through a lot of chunk of time of I don't want to feels, right? You're gonna want to be like, what about this idea? What about this possibility? What about like, well, that analogy didn't work. What about this analogy, right? Instead of just like, motherfucker, just tell me what the fuck you mean, and then maybe I can follow you, right? Sure, but when it comes down to it, like when the chips are down, you have exhausted your saviors, you've been hit with a tidal wave, and you just got to fucking deal with the sensory, and you have to like make a plan. SI, if you have SI in your stack, even if it's baby, even if it's last, even if it sucks, your impulse is going to go, okay, can I make a recipe for this? Like, are there steps that I can follow as if I were like, I don't want to say it's idiot proof, because there is so much nuance to really good SI. My mother is SI to hell. And the level of nuance in how she organizes, especially with her feminine sensory, like fucking blows my mind how good this woman is at organizing. Same with Martha Stewart, right? Like, holy shit. But there is going to be, it's going to be a very like policies and procedures. At some point, you will respect those. You will respect. I'm going to call it, the shorthand them as dumb rules. They're not actually dumb rules, play along, but it's the sort of thing that you're like, no, you know what? I do get it. I now understand why every memo has to use blue paper. I get it. That makes sense. And I understand why we have to replace the printer, the printer paper when it's at half capacity rather than at a quarter capacity because of this other possibility. So these are the policies. This is the procedure. These are the sensory mechanics that we execute, that we're not looking for outside input. We're not looking to like come up with new ways of doing things. We're just going to perfect what we have already been doing in a very recipe-like, step-by-step manner, right? And that's what the SI will fucking crush you at. When there is a task or a procedure or a whatever that rewards that sort of like sensory, puzzly intricacy. Again, when we're just talking about like, we're not bringing in the TI component, right? We're just talking about, I don't remember the exact analogy, but it was like making the one loop and perfecting the fuck out of that loop in like a mechanical, sensory way. And then you're just layering loop upon loop upon loop upon loop until you have whatever the end product is, right? And you're just like laying brick after brick after brick after brick in a concrete sensory way, right? We're talking about laying literal bricks, right? With the intention of them staying there. That is something my father and I never do. We will never, ever do that. If we have to, we will. But like, we are going to exhaust, like rather than exhausting 3 functions before doing that, we're going to exhaust 7 functions before doing that because fuck that, no. Right? And weirdly, like, because he's not an SI, he's like, and you can even hear it like when he tries to explain his organizing process. He's like, I don't know, what are you aiming for? All right, well, this is your goal. This is your abstract thing you're looking at down the line. I don't know, man. Just fucking show up to work every day. I don't know. Take life as it comes. Be here now. That's sort of how he's lived his life. And that's not really indicative of somebody who is doubling up on their lead gather function if they're an ENFP. Like, ENFP tends to have a harder time with the be here now thing. Just because, I don't know. It's the SI is at the bottom, the part of their function stack that is responsible for like groundedness and being present and like, organized and known, right? Like, they're gonna resist it they're gonna resist the sensory, right? But you look at my dad's life and how he has succeeded and failed, right? I'm not going to say in equal measure. I think he's had a lot more success than failure. But his successes and failures have come from the fact that he is so good at being present and being here now that like that comes at the expense of forward thinking, of the abstract. And I realized, and I think it was in the SI versus NI video, when they were talking about like the N types, they will just throw analogy after analogy after analogy at you. In that past little segment from 3 minutes ago, I just switched analogies because the analogy I was working on stopped being useful and I needed to layer another one on top of that and call back a reference to another analogy from the video, right? I don't know if you caught it, but I was talking about crocheting and mastering the fuck out of a single loop. And then I just randomly started talking about brick after brick after brick after brick seamlessly. I think the transition made sense. It seems like for many of you who watch these videos, those kinds of transitions made sense. But like, I started to clock how often my dad actually uses analogies. And the answer is fucking never. It's just not a thing he does. And I don't know how I missed it, except that I am a lead feminine NI, and my analogy machine is on fucking overdrive 100% of the time. And so I was sort of projecting his, right? So like, he would be telling me something and I would assume he meant it abstractly and metaphorically, when in actuality, there is no evidence that that is what he meant at all. 0%. None of it. He really did just mean thing. Right? And when he throws out, so he is an idea machine. He loves throwing out ideas. But here's the thing. They're not abstract ideas. They're not, what if, like, he's not imagining things that don't exist. I think that that's where I got tripped up, is that my lead N is all about the unseen. It's right? It's the I love that quote about like seeing a door, like walking through a door that nobody even saw, right? That to me, like that, oh, that tickles my jellies. Like I'm into that. I'm into that vibe. But that's not him. He is so present and so concrete and so literal when he suggests, like, you know what, why don't you, I know you figuring stuff out. Why don't you just like be a Spanish teacher for a little bit? And he's not, there's no attachment to it, but he's also not trying, like, yes, it's an idea in the sense that he's just like throwing something out there. But he's not saying, what if you were to like, I'm just imagining here, like an online Spanish, so using your Spanish and a technology component, maybe, I don't know, but like something like that. I don't have it exactly. Whereas he's like, I don't know, you could teach Spanish. You could go to the beach. You could do this. So it is possibility talk, but it's such an intensely grounded version of possibility talk, much in the same way that Aaron Alexander, I fucking love that guy. I've talked about him like nonstop because I'm just obsessed with him, because he's sort of the archetype that I have been looking to learn from in almost every way. So I'm like, whatever the fuck he's doing, I just need more of that. And it's honestly, it's helped a lot, which we'll get later in the story. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, oh, so yes, he's shitting out ideas in a sense, but I'm interpreting them through my own lens of NI. And he's not thinking past, why don't you be a Spanish teacher for a little bit, see how it feels? He really just means do it until you're bored or until you figure out something else you want to do. Whereas I am like, be a God damn it. All right, now I got this new idea that I have to like think about. Does that mean that I'm on a different career trajectory? How does that fit into all of the other? That's just not what he's thinking about. He's like, just be I don't know. That's a thing you could do. Forget about where you're going. Just be here now. And again, once I had this revelation with the SI versus NI video, plus Clara's video, plus Aaron Alexander. All of the dominoes, like, it wasn't even dominoes. It was like that game. Here again, fucking analogy machine. It's like that game where it's like a bunch of weird shapes and you like spin it until it makes a bird or a horse or a four-leaf clover or the fuck it makes, right? That's what it was like. It was like, I've been turning it and spin. It's like, is this ENFP? I don't know. Like, it hasn't locked into place, but like, yeah, I can make a case for ENFP. And then I was like, oh, those two things don't actually match up. Okay, I got it. This, I was like, oh, fuck. Yep, there it is. Double masculine, ESFP, boom. I fucking get it. And I bring this up tonight because I'm twofold. One, I just like talking about my dad. He's a cool dude, and I like him a lot. But the second thing I want to talk about is like, what are the actual dangers of mistyping somebody, right? I think they are low. I think the odds of like, if you mistype somebody in your personal life, in your at the office, it doesn't really matter because you can always overcome any typing bias with like humanity and empathy and connection and giving a shit about other people and wanting to give and wanting to grow and like meet, like just that fundamental human quality of meeting someone where they're at. That fucking trumps everything. And when if you are unsure about somebody's typing and how to behave around them, and you're like, I don't know, if they're an ESFJ, then I should do this, but if they're actually a jumper, I should, you've already fucked up, right? Because now you're thinking about parts. You're not treating people like people. It's just be a person, be warm and open and vulnerable, let people into your life, and be here now with them, right? But once you get past that layer and you're like, okay, and again, this is true, like my relationship with my dad and my mom is fantastic. We get along super well. So I always know that like, now I feel safe trying to like type and analyze them because, you know, if that falls apart or if I fuck up and get it wrong, it's all good. We'll just do the, you know, I can just be a person with my parents and it's fine. And so, but I think that the biggest thing with like seeing him as an ESFP, and again, I could still be wrong about this. I don't think I am, but I of course I could be wrong. Different if Shave saw him and was like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? He's clearly a jumper ESTJ. Like, I'd be like, well, shit, I don't fucking know. But like, I am very comfortable with my assessment of him as a double masculine ESFP, consume, play, sleep, blast last, right? We had a Skype call today, right? Me and my mom, my dad, I haven't seen them in a while. Usually we see each other every couple of months, obviously with all the travel bans and now the fucking curfews. Like, we hadn't seen each other, we're missing each other, feeling the vibes, right? So I was like, so they suggested yesterday, they're like, yeah, we should do a Zoom call. And I was like, absolutely, love to do it. Jump on a Zoom call with them. And it was awesome. It was fucking awesome. Because what I realized is, and again, on the human level, I was probably overcomplicating it too. But boy, did this help. Because my mom, like now, if my dad is an ESFP, blast last. My mom is an ESFJ with consume last. Oh, now I understand their dynamic. And also, he's double masculine, she's double feminine. Ha-cha-cha-cha-cha. They are covering a lot of bases. They're covering a lot of bases. So, when I was, having this conversation with them, it was so easy to have a conversation with them because I could just go, oh, right. I don't need to play this weird NE game and basically do like the shittier version of my savior N that I'm really, really bad at and don't like doing at all, ever. I can just SF consume. And it made it so much easier to connect with my dad because we were just doing the SF consume with the masculine sensory, the SF consume thing together. And I was like, oh, this is how I have a conversation with him. Because there's no future talk. I don't need to be thinking about how to corral his weird fucking N and like fit it into my NI and keep it's like, no, it's fine. He's just masculine SEing all over the place. And I'm, I can just, we're doing the masculine SE thing. Great. Doing the thing. Oh, we're all just playing the SF game here together. Great. That is great. I now get to look forward to taking a break from my goddamn NT all the time. And I can just SF with the people. And it's helped, that one of the things that I've still working on it, but like connecting with my mom on the SF level, the more I look at other people who have savior SF, or rather SF above NT, is there is that like almost that Veruca Salt, like, I want it now, which is not fair to anybody. Even it's not even fair to Veruca Salt, because I do think that Veruca Salt is a wildly underrated band. Oh, didn't think I was going to go there, right? Hashtag the 90s. But being able to like understanding that like when my mother and I have disagreements, and actually even when my dad and I would have disagreements, I would be trying to NT their SF when that's not what they're trying to do at all. It's not like they're SFing and being like, boy, I'm missing this NT. Can you help me NT this? No, they're just SFing back and forth. My mom's blasting SF. My dad's consuming SF. It's fine. We're good. And being able to sort of slot into that. We talked for like an hour today on Zoom. It's fucking beautiful, man. It was great. I loved it. And, I was like, oh, this is really easy. Because now I don't feel like I have to compensate for anything, right? I really can play to my strengths and connect with the people who mean a lot to me, right? When I'm with my mom, we can just get into blaster land, right? Blast back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. It's fucking great. It doesn't matter that she's SF blast and I'm NT blast, because of the common ground that we have is that we are blasting together. My dad and I, sure, he's, blast last and I'm consume third and whatever. Like, he's lead consume, I'm lead blast. But we still have SF consume with that masculine sensory. So like we can meet each other in the middle there, right? So like there is common ground in a way that when I talk about like my old workspaces, whatever, there was not common ground. And there was the gap was big enough that, and again, there were like other really toxic things about the workplace and the city and the people and the fucking everything. It was just bad. But if you get me into a room with an NE person who expects my NI to organize their NE without giving me any SI, now I'm like, fuck everything. And looking at like the past 34 years of interactions I've had with my dad, that's never been a thing he's actually cared about. He's never looked towards the future in sort of like a planning-y kind of way. He has always just been very, be here now, be here now, be here now, do what is right in front of you. And where I think that like where I think the Paul brothers, the reason they get so much flack is not that they're not organizing. That is certainly part of it. And Lord knows, I have seen, talk to my dad. The only reason he ended up in New Mexico is because his car ran out of gas on an Indian reservation. And he's like, well, and again, this is in the late 60s, so there was no texting, no email, no fucking nothing. And he's always been very don't control me, bro. And he's like, well, I guess I'll just work on this Indian reservation because that's just where I am. Be here now. Cool, right? But I think that where like the Paul brothers really screw up is that they're just selfish, right? Or at least they behave in an exaggeratedly selfish way. I have no idea if they are like actually genuinely selfish humans. That's obviously an aspersion I don't want to cast. But I look at, the Paul brothers and I'm like, you're just not being a good human to your fellow humans. And that is something that is a quality that my father has always had. Is that he can get a little punchy, right? Again, that masculine TE will come out. Save your play, just fucking punch the room energetically, verbally sparring. It's like, we're having a tussle, we're having fun, without necessarily, maybe sometimes doesn't check in and be like, hey, the person that you're punching doesn't really feel like playing with you right now. So I don't know, maybe don't punch the guy verbally, right? Maybe don't jab at him, metaphorically. But he's always been able to leverage that, just like, my only job first and foremost is to just be a good person in the moment. Sometimes that gets him into trouble. Sometimes it doesn't. But it certainly makes him very charismatic. And it certainly, I think that he is somebody who I never saw myself necessarily looking up to, but realizing, oh, wow, there's a lot. And again, not just in the like, wow, I am a lot more like my father than I realize. Like, not even in that sense, but in a very practical, sensory, OP sense of like, oh shit, I can actually learn about his lead, like from his lead SF masculine as fuck consume. And you know what? Honestly, like he might be, I don't know. Again, my feelings about the decider, sexual energy of the decider. I don't think it really fucking matters. I think that that's predominantly learned behavior. That's my opinion. But like the masculine SE at the top, holy fuck, can I learn from that? Now that I know what I'm looking for, great. Fucking dial it in. We're doing it. And again, like obviously, he loves food. He's always loved food. He loves trying different foods. But again, at the expense of, he doesn't always think about his health. Whatever, right? Give and take. What are you gonna do? But that's sort of, it was such an interesting revelation that I had, an unexpected one too, of like, oh shit, he and I, like the ways in which we connect and have connected and also disconnected, there really is a lot of OP at stake here, right? It is very, our conflicts were not, there weren't multiple layers to it, right? It wasn't like, well, he's lead consume and he's NE and he's blast last and fuck everything, right? No, it is not actually that complicated. It's just, he's got savior SF consume. I have demon SF consume. But we're still in the same quadrant. And again, we have the enormous advantage, in my opinion, of being able to like connect with the masculine sensory. And my fondest memories of being with him are because, when we're doing masculine sensory shit together, right? Like we're building shelves. We're going to the dump together, right? We're loading a bunch of dirty furniture into the trailer and driving to the dump and fucking throwing the couch and the the concrete and the fucking whatever, throwing it, right? It's all, and playing golf, like it's all this very masculine stuff, masculine sensory kinds of things, right? That we're able to like bro out and bond over. And I think that he has the feminine FI as a savior, which makes him like, not as much of a dick. Well, maybe he could. I don't know. But he's a really sweet guy. And I think that part of that is he's not as punchy as you would expect a double masculine to be, because he does have that savior feminine FI that he's responsible for. So he is responsible for feminine feeling, feminine deciding, and really does thrive at that, and is, when he can speak from a place and act from a place of that feminine decider, then he's like, oh yeah, we can be movable. I can be movable. I can move around that. It's all good. We're all good, right? But and sort of looking back and sort of looking at my own Freudian patterns and just like seeing my parents' dynamic really, really clearly, especially during this quarantine, when there isn't all this extra bullshit of life happening. At least for most of the quarantine. Now there's bullshit of life happening with protests and riots and curfews. But sort of seeing the two of them interact, and weirdly me watching The Sopranos helped, because I was able to see like, oh, right, that's double masculine gamma quadrant shit. Oh shit, my dad is double masculine. He does have a lot of alpha male energy. But it's not quite Tony Robbins, because he has the lead consume and his savior decider is feminine. So it's not quite as like fuck you as Tony Robbins and Gary Vee. But he is absolutely double masculine. He has he has just a lot of masculine energy. I don't know how the fuck else to put it. And my mom has a lot of feminine. And again, it's sort of seeing the two of them, why they're able to complement each other and meet each other in the middle, is that between the two of them, they have all 8 functions covered. They have feminine sensory, masculine sensory, feminine intuition, feminine extrovert decider, they have so many fucking bases covered that when they communicate and when they are in the room together and collaborating on something and working together, they're fucking unstoppable, because every base is covered. Every single one. The one gap in the two of them is the NT, which is where I sort of fit into the triangle of us hanging out together, and why it's sometimes draining for me, but also exciting, and why we do complement each other, is that I just bring so much NT to the party that they're like, holy shit, great. You handle all the NT, we'll handle all the SF. But then again, there's that disconnect. And so one of the things that I know that I'm going to try to do, I'm seeing them in a month. I'm very excited. I can finally travel again now that LA isn't like quite as much of a shit show. I'm really looking forward to just like SFing with them and just seeing what that feels like, and trusting that I can shut off the NT and that everything will be fine. And if something goes fakakta, whatever, we can all turn on our NT and be fine. But generally trying to live in this SF space with them and really be present and really like be here now with them. I'm really excited about seeing them in a month and not feeling like I have to play to strengths that I don't have, especially considering all the SF work that I've been doing, all of the like self-understanding, really investing in it, really prioritizing it, really understanding when NT is appropriate and when it isn't, And I think that when I'm hanging out with my parents, where like we all love each other and fundamentally get along as humans, fuck OP, yeah, I don't have to NT everything. It's fine. I can just be part of the SF family and it's all good. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and leave me a comment below. Tell me how SF affects you in your life and sort of how you feel about it. I would love to learn about SF in every incarnation. I think it's so cool, and it's really, really, really goddamn useful. And I think that I would be saying that if I was Savior SF, Demon SF, doesn't fucking matter. If you can tap into the SF part of your psyche and balance it and understand it and really own it and use it, now you're going to be kicking some ass. All right, bye.